Incidental. And then any abstentions? All right, we've approved the minutes. So tonight we have two presenters here with us. Very lucky to have these folks willing to come and talk with us a little bit. As a reminder to everyone, each presenter has 30 minutes, which includes presentation time and questions and answers. When we get to the Q&A portion, we'll go with kind of standard rules where each person will speak once. If there are folks who haven't spoken already, I'll prioritize them in the time that we have. And then second questions will be asked after that. So our first presenter tonight is Councilmember Cruver. And thank you, Commissioner O'Leary, as always, for your service as our microphone hander.
I'm part-time too.
I thought we had something new here. Thank you so much for asking me to be here. I'm Amy Cruver, Pierce County Council, representing the 3rd Council District. And you just never really get used to public speaking, so I'll have to get my notes out here. I just want to say, talk a little bit about why I ended up getting involved into government, and that I have this theory of bigger citizens, smaller government. And I was involved in a few things with listening to things that government was doing, and I became more interested, and hence I was a charter review member 10 years ago. So I feel like deja vu, listening to all of what you folks are doing. And my background has been mostly all in the private sector. I was a video sales rep before I went to government. So I also happened to be in the territory of where my council district is. And so I had spent 15 years navigating that, the area as an assistant, learning about constituents, and then here I am today, going on to the council. And so I just want to share how I view legislation, in that I go, what is my constituent asking me to do? And I also look at it as, what are we asking my neighbor to do? Because it is my neighbor who is paying the taxes. And is this something that I might go door to door and asking for, say, we want this project. Is it worthy enough that you would give up some of your income for that? And I want to make sure that our role is making sure that public infrastructure, we need our roads, our schools, our hospitals, our bridges, that those things are taken care of. And so then I'll go into some of the things that the other commissioner or council members have viewed. One thing I want for the council to have next time is more support for the commissioners. I am seeing the same repetition here, where it's like, we've never done policy before. We've never had to look this up. And it would be nice to have someone to confer with and understand if what you're looking at is doable. Maybe you would be fighting off some long-term consequences that you might not think of. And one of the main things I want to make sure I have time for is going over the conflict of interest, the 9.45 section, because I was questioned when I was elected 10 years ago. And I can't tell you the feeling, some of you can, that when you get there and someone challenges and says, hey, you're an employee and now you're elected. And I'm like, wait a minute, I'm just an assistant. And why would anybody think that putting in the code that this would count towards or be a conflict of interest? And so I wanted to go over some things, and Vice Chair Lance, you would be knowledgeable of this as Commissioner Hannick. And there was we had received a letter from forget the title, Denise Greer. She was the Assistant Chief Civil Deputy. And she did have a letter, and I did submit these things to the assistant for giving out to you folks later. And in this, where she did say there was a conflict, in her opinion, that it did violate the law. And then there were other positions that were brought forth in that it did not raise the level for the office of, I had it all down before I came here. But in state law, RCW 29A24075 says, excluding the office of precinct committee officer or a temporary elected position, such as a charter review board member or freeholder, no person may file for more than one office. And the exemptions, as far as employees, when it shows that they do not have any authority over decision making, that they are not considered to be of the caliber that would stop them from being in this office. It's going back, the common law doctrine of incompatible office is the one thing that I was challenged on. And so I just wanted to be able to put forth these issues. And I was working with my elected commissioner in writing up an amendment for this that addresses the things that I am referring to. Then going on to influence. There's really nothing that a member of this commission couldn't share with anyone else who is a friend, who is a relative, who is a husband, who is a cousin, who is a manager of another department, that they couldn't do at any other time. And so when you have someone that is an employee, such as I was at the time, I was just an assistant. I didn't have any legislative authority. I had no authority over any of the employees in making any kinds of decisions. And influence is something that you might want to look at. There's a lot of dollars that go through the county to other organizations, be it for housing, be it for public health, be it for behavioral health. And one of the things I was looking up where the county gave $300,000 to an organization, I'm like, wow. So I'm looking that up. And as I'm looking that up in the Google search, I find another article that says the state gave the same organization $5 million. And also the city of Tacoma gave the organization $10,000. So there's $5,310,000 going to an organization. And it might be worthy of looking at possibly, are there connections from people that are connected to an organization receiving that much money from serving on a charter review commission, which could have influence on the rules and regulations that are made. Okay, having said that, to move on to meeting reductions, I just noticed that Vice Chair Lance's amendment coming through with 45, that matches what I was going to recommend. Because so often we are doing not just, but they're important appointments, and we can be done at an earlier time. And there are other meetings that go longer. And so we have right now is the 50, which must be consecutive. I was wanting to recommend 45 as well, because we have the 7 in-district meetings. And they used to be the same night, the Tuesday night, because my understanding is that was to reflect for our constituents the ability to watch a real council meeting be happening. Well, they turned into more of a town hall meeting. They didn't want to have legislation that could be controversial. In fact, we had one in the 3rd Council District that had the greatest attendance because people wanted to voice their position on one of the ordinances that was coming up. And it was after that I believe it was discerned, we don't really want to have that much going on at in-district meetings. So they turned them into more of a town hall. And okay, if we had the 45, that would give us more time to be able to have more town halls in our district, if we so choose, or be more involved with our constituents. And so I am going to, wholeheartedly support doing the reduced mandatory. I would kind of take a deeper look at being able to hold more, 2 in 1 week to count versus more consecutive. 45 weeks out of the 52, having at least one per week of those is a good choice. Then looking at increasing the term limits for the partisan positions to match the other ones for 3. I can support that. I'm in a position that's it's just because of where you are. For me, the ballot box is what determines a limit. And you will find generally that if someone limits out, someone else gets elected that's the same genre anyway, the same kinds of thought. And that's, I think, an analysis that is worthy of thought on that. And also you might think of, moving the elections for county to the odd numbered years like they do with the city council meetings. And I believe some school board elections maybe are in the odd numbered years. 10 years ago, we tried that, but we had Kathy Purcell-Stipek on the commission and former Auditor Julie Anderson was there, and they're saying that it doesn't increase the turnout. Isn't, well, maybe if a county council race is on there, it would increase the turnout. And I know that you have been told of voter fatigue going through, and when there are so many things on the ballot, especially in presidential years and big Senate race years, there is that ballot fatigue, and it would also give opportunity for the constituents to research more on who is running for that office. And then there was discussion on the budget and maybe having that presented a little bit sooner. I had checked before with budget makers, and they really kind of need that forecast, which comes a little bit later rather than having the budget be presented sooner. I might suggest that there be two budgets, one that in the event of a downturn, you can implement the second budget. That way you don't have, I'm believing, you wouldn't have to have like a straight across the board cut where everyone gets hurt. You would be able to have a budget that is more precise in eliminating that which is nice to have and being able to keep that which you must have. Then going on to the councilmanic vote for tax increases. That's like a must have, because actually when you're taxing like that, that is a form of taking property. And government expands naturally when it gets more money. And also looking at, the state, they have two chambers that they have to go through to pass bills versus just, 7 members. And then also thinking how taxes are what started the Revolutionary War, the Stamp Act, T-tax. And Madison told us that government exists to protect property. And also, if you're increasing the tax burden, that should reflect a broad consensus. And also a majority vote, that can burden your minorities, and taxing is the most expressive form of government power, and it should be tightly controlled. And also, I think the regulatory state in this state and county is, I think, killing us financially. And the one thing about being a home rule charter is that you can increase the rules and regulations of the state. It just can't be less onerous or less restrictive. And there are times when we get budgets or planning, and I want to say the planning and public works brings forth rules and regulations to implement critical area ordinances or maybe the cultural resource studies, where they may have more regulation than what is necessary. And having an ordinance that presents the minimum due, the least burden to the constituent would be nice to have, versus another amendment that shows exactly what more burdens there are being placed on the constituent. And then if the desire is to have the more burden, that one should require a supermajority vote. There are, I forget who I was speaking with, but we're looking at about $50,000 added to the price of a home because of all the regulations. And if the goal is affordable housing, that's not going to happen. Zooming, I have to say, originally I was like, yeah, no, because it started out kind of like with the phone where people could phone in. I thought, oh no, council meetings are going to be talk radio. And it didn't happen. And I was like, oh, okay. So the Zoom has been actually a pretty good plus. And addressing increasing members to 9. I'm kind of ambivalent on it. I don't know that is something that we can afford. However, looking at the analysis of wanting 80,000, when I looked at my district, so the districts are supposed to go into 134,500 as kind of the number. And I had about 31,000 that are under 18, so they can't vote. About half are married, representing 25,875, and the other half are not. That's representing 51,750. So if I look at those each as a unit, we're in essence representing under 80,000 units. And so, look, people aren't particularly, they're so involved in their lives right now, they have elected representatives to do the things that you want to talk to them about. If they're interested, great. If they're not, you have their permission. There was a discussion on franchises. I'm kind of neutral on that. I like there should be flexibility to kind of go with the times. If it's a long base term of 10 to 15 years, there should be performance checkpoints every 3 to 5. and have a clause to reopen that, to renegotiate if things, get out of hand. I don't know that they would, but that's, just in case. And something that is near and dear to my heart is land use policies. And what a lot of people don't realize is nationally, there are a lot of organizations that I want to say are collecting land. And a lot of it is for the environmental purposes, for whatever reasons, where maybe it just sits there. And there are a lot of organizations across the country that have a lot of money in funding. There's a lot of government programs for funding. And in particular, the examples I want to cite are into like conservation easements and like land trust land transfer programs, and we have conservation futures. Because these are in perpetuity. That's forever. Whereas in a housing, there's a housing or short-term emergency housing program, and that is funded through taxpayer dollars. And generally, if they're doing a low-income housing, that contract goes for like 30 years. And then the property becomes possession of, and the covenant comes off, and the person that, or the organization that was performing the service, they get to keep that asset. And I'm like, well, why is there a contract that ends there on providing low income, whereas land is in perpetuity? And part of that is a federal reason. And my suggestion is looking for that Pierce County is a beneficiary on that deed in perpetuity, because easements can be sold to someone else. In terms of the Nature Conservancy, they are one of, if not the largest landholder in the world, an easement holder as well. And they are also in a partnership with China. So what happens if China comes and buys these easements and they go in the land? Then what? They own the asset. They own that natural asset. Then how are we going to generate revenue for later? The other thing I want to kind of point out is regionalism. When you regionalize, it's a form of control, and you're disenfranchising the voters. And I don't quite know how you would put that into a charter, but without borders, we don't have a county, we don't have a state, we don't have a country. And regionalizing, it becomes with the appointed people. So you have like the Puget Sound Regional Council, where we have to answer, we have to get their blessings to pass a comp plan. You look at the Growth Management Control Pollution Hearings Board, which there is 3 members who are appointed, who right now are going to have jurisdiction, unless the attorneys can work things out a different way, over 14,000 acres that a family has been running cattle, and they have grazing rights for 70 years. It's a long story, but this is a problem when you have that much authority for folks that are appointed. Then the regulatory, I went over. The elected versus appointed. Now, there's a lot of angst over the sheriff's position, and I guess I'm looking at elected versus appointed as a general theme, because that's kind of governing by exclusion. And is that a road that you want to go down? Because understanding the authority that is being foregone for the people. Because the sheriff has the authority to challenge the federal government. So if they are coming to investigate, well, the sheriff can investigate their conduct. He can order cessation of unlawful activity. He can detain or arrest if there's a clear violation of state law. And the feds can lose their immunity protections. And if why would we just stop at the sheriff's office and not go on to other offices if we don't like them or we want to change the rules? And what I tell people when they're whining about, like my son does, like, who's on the ballot, or who they're tired of their representative, I'd say, well, then you need to run. Because it's not easy to step up and run for office. You take a lot of arrows. But I did want to, elections are the mechanisms that make a republic function. And so that's like getting back to the people. But I would like to suggest that the map maker for redistricting be an elected position. I attended by Zoom a lot of the meetings when they did that a few years ago. And it just was kind of interesting. And then to learn later that the map maker that was chosen was clearly not nonpartisan. There were posts found on social media that spilled the beans on who this person really was. Plus, they were asking questions on how to make maps. And I think we need a real map maker master. And if the credentials are on the ballot on somebody running, it's not something they should have to maybe put a lot of money towards to do that. But I think it would be a better choice for folks if we can at least have that person elected. Okay. A little bit on general government, because there was, I believe, an amendment on the hiring process. I don't know of anything more robust. I'm just waiting for the day when it's going to be, just put your application, your John Doe 173, and it goes into an AI form, and then somebody says, I need someone with these qualifications, and they pull that out, and you have no personal choices in it. And there's a lot of cohesiveness in an office. And so it isn't just what's on the paper. So there's a lot more to it. And the system now is, at least at the government, at the council, the job positions are posted and open to the public. And those get weeded out. I don't know how they do it. I haven't been on that. But you're looking at who was filling the qualifications. The former chief of staff spent a lot of time when she was at the office writing the descriptions of each of the office in order to have the clarity for that. And so they've done, I think, a very robust job in doing job search and trying to find the best qualified person. And you don't always have a lot of people who apply. It's kind of like how we want to have all of our constituents involved in their government, but they don't want to. And I get that. I didn't care about government for 30 some years. I thought they were all doing really well. And then, when the time comes that you get ready to be involved, then you get involved, and it's voluntary. And one of the things I would like to see perhaps at the auditor's level is verifying information of candidates. And the reason I say that is that there was a person who filed for office that happened to be in my district, and I'm like, I don't know who that person is. And research on that kind of showed more of a Bonnie Lake address, yet they had a Spanaway address in the pamphlet. And so I asked the auditor, I said, well, who checks that to confirm that? And the answer was, well, you have to prove it. Well, how am I going to, I don't get copies of bills. I can't access things. And at least for people running for office, verifying the information that they put on there is true and validated might not be I think would be a good idea. And encourage cash. I don't want to see the county going to where you have to pay online or you have to pay with a credit card, because if your money can be blocked, delayed, or denied, you don't own it. And there are so many things happening, I believe, IRS now, and they aren't going to let me write a check. And I think starting next year, someone said this year. And I'm like, I really don't want them to have my checking account number. And things are kind of sketchy, but just kind of wrapping up here that we can find agreement that we would love to have our constituents participate more. And that, our founders were very well versed in tyranny, and they were very well read on different forms of government. And because of that, they forged a limited constitutional republic and authored a constitution that was not written for the time. It was written to stand the test of time. And that is what I am hoping that the aspirations will be for this commission as you go through and continue with putting together this wonderful charter. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for sharing your thoughts with us. Do any commissioners have questions? We have about 5 minutes.
Oh, I took that long. Oh my gosh.
Sure. You have a lot to tell us.
I didn't think that much.
Commissioner O'Leary, and he'll need the microphone.
I gotta share the mic, sorry. Thanks for the presentation, Amy. I just wanted to clarify something. You made a comment about what I believe was a requirement or keeping the requirement for a 2/3 vote on tax increases.
Correct.
Do you have any feeling about expanding the requirement of a 2/3 vote? We've heard other council people come in and say that they felt there might be some merit to that, that might help build consensus. Do you have an opinion on that?
I'm not clear of understanding. For raising taxes, definitely a 2/3 vote, a supermajority on that. And you said something else, because the other thing would be when regulations are more onerous than what the state does, that those should require a 2/3 vote.
Okay.
But I didn't know, or were you thinking that something else in government should have a 2/3 vote?
The statement was there should be more
So
requirement.
Commissioner Larry, folks online
I
can't
forgot.
hear you at
Oh,
all.
I forgot. This is
Thank
for
you.
online. The statement by another council person was that requirements of 2/3 vote on more votes would help build the need for consensus amongst the council. So there wouldn't be a division based on the party that's in control so much. It would maybe help build the need for consensus. You would have to find a way to work together if more items required a 2/3 vote. And I just wondered if you had an opinion on that. Nothing specific, it was just a general statement.
Okay. Probably not. I mean, we would go on and on and on for something like that. And I guess, everyone has their own way of how they are managing and what they will and will not compromise on. And so you're getting into an area where forcing somebody to just wanted to get out. That reminds me, I was on a jury duty years ago. And it was like they wanted to get out, like, well, we have to give them something. And I'm like, why do you have to give them something? But I don't think that would be a good idea.
Thank you.
Any additional questions? Yes. Commissioner Fletcher.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Commissioner Fletcher, District 5. Thank you, Councilmember Cruver. Lovely presentation. For the budget, you said, and correct me if I'm wrong, but more time to make a forecast would be beneficial to the council. Is that correct?
Close.
So maybe you can help me out here. Section 6.1 for presentation and adoption of the budget says at least a minimum 100 days. Is that too much time, not enough time for your purposes to review a budget that is accurate and complete?
As I understand in the budget system, how it is working is that there are forecasts that are given on how we are doing financially, and they are at certain given times. And if we were to require the budget to be done sooner, handed to the council sooner to review, we would not have the latest forecast to have the better accuracy. Maybe 105 days. I don't know what the sweet spot would be on that, but going too much beyond that, the recommendation to me was it really wouldn't be good for creating the budget. Okay.
Thank you. Any final questions? Seeing none, thank you so much for sharing with us tonight, being
Thank
here.
you.
We really appreciate it. All right, our second presentation tonight is Pierce County Assessor Treasurer Marty Campbell. And I believe we have a presentation slides.
Yes,
And I hear that there's some video
there
portion.
is a video portion. I brought multimedia today. Thank you, Councilmember Cruver, for the card act to follow here. Thank you for having me here this evening. I do appreciate it. I'm going to talk a little bit about my background. I want to spend about 10-12 minutes on what the Assessor Treasurer's Office does so that you guys can have a well-rounded view of that. I'll open it up to questions first. I have some notes on some of the various ones, but I want to make sure I'm answering your questions before I just give my random opinions. I have plenty. Again, my name is Marty Campbell. I am serving as your Pierce County Assessor Treasurer. I want to thank each of you for your service. I know this is not easy. I've seen many long nights for many of you, and so I appreciate it. Congratulations, you're almost halfway done. And for some of you, that just created palpitations too. I understand that. A little bit about me. I was a small business owner for about 20 years. Oddly enough, I owned a video store, and I bought my videos from Councilmember Cruver, who was the sales rep to my video store many years ago. We're not going to say how many years ago. I served on Tacoma City Council for 8 years in a nonpartisan role, and I served on Pierce County Council for 6 years in a partisan role as a Democrat. During my time on Pierce County Council, for 2 years, I was in the minority with a Republican executive. For 4 years, I was in the majority with a Republican executive. I was vice chair for 3 years and executive pro tem for 1 year. Through those various times, I also served on the boards of Pierce Transit, Crystal Judson Family Justice Center, Tacoma Pierce County Board of Health, Workforce Central, and many other boards and commissions. For the last 15 months, I have been the Pierce County Assessor Treasurer. If you're looking through your charter, if you go to section 3.50 Assessor Treasurer, it reads there is hereby created the Executive Department of Assessor Treasurer. The Assessor Treasurer shall be nonpartisan position elected by the voters of the county. And that's about the extent of Assessor Treasurer in your charter. I think there's a few other, but that is where we're created. So we're going to go ahead and go to a presentation here a little bit. We go next. Again, we are led by a nonpartisan elected official in the county, and our job is to fairly assess property within the county, collect the tax dollars and with the assessed property values, distribute those tax dollars out to our taxing districts, and make sure that in doing all of that, we follow state and local laws, policies, and voter-approved measures. I want to be clear, we do not set tax policy. If you want to ask me tax policy questions, we do not set tax policy. That's set at the legislature primarily. Next. And here's the aforementioned video. So let's hope that this goes that the Department of Revenue put together. Can we get a little louder?
Property tax is the oldest tax in the state of Washington, and it's also one of the more difficult.
All right, well, we're buffering as often happens. Let's just go and go to the next slide. It is in your packet if you want to go back and watch it. It's also on our website. It's just put together to help people understand property taxes, again, by the Department of Revenue. Go back one. I think just a little bit about us. The Assessor Treasurer's Office has a staff of about 82 people. We have appraisals on the residential and commercial side, and our operations side includes customer service, land management, foreclosure avoidance, exemptions, levies, and records. If we are to do it all in cash, I'm going to need a few more people. So you'll need to fund that part. Next question, or next slide, please. So a little bit of the numbers that we're looking at. Countywide, we have, as we're all divided into parcels, there are 353,743 parcels. I have the breakdown there of residential, commercial, mobile home, and personal property. Personal property is a little bit of a misnomer. That's actually business personal property. And those are accounts on the value of the assets of a business. And they're taxed as the same as property. We just have to do it through a different process. Countywide, there are 86 total taxing districts. And of course, none of them line up completely with each other. And so that creates 171 different tax code areas. It's always fun explaining to someone that the house across the street has a whole different tax code, and that's why their rates are different than yours. Next slide, please. Total taxes collected, just over $2 billion. And the average retail assessed value, or residential retail assessed value, is about $529,000, about $530,000, and the commercial assessed values average are just over $2 million per building. Next slide. Now this is a little bit of a breakdown so where do your taxes go? And there's a lot here. You can go back, look at the packet. Do want to draw your attention to that little red arrow, and that says Pierce County 7.071%. So when you pay your tax bill, only 7% of that is going to Pierce County to fund Pierce County operations. It's a little bit for roads fund that'll help with the roads, but primarily for the general fund is 7% of your tax bill. So it's everyone thinks it's all coming to the county, and they're like, I pay all these taxes, and only a small sliver actually ends up back with Pierce County. Next slide, please. A little bit of what we already do in person and supporting people. You all come in, if you've taken a right, you've been right to the Assessor Treasurer's office right there. In person, last year we had almost 30,000 visits and took in another 36,000 phone calls. Our website is extremely busy with over 1 million views to the website, and the information portal, that's where you all go look up the value of your home and your neighbor's home and all that, over 14 million visits, making it one of the busiest websites in the county. Next slide. Couple other issues that we do is foreclosure avoidance. And I know some people talk to me about that. You always hear about these, come to these foreclosure classes, you can do that. We start the year with about just under 1,000 people usually facing foreclosure. That means they haven't paid their taxes for 3 years. We begin working with them with our foreclosure avoidance process. We don't want anyone to lose their home. So we'll start with over 1,000. Last year, only 35 parcels went to auction, and 28 of those were vacant land. A lot of times remnant parcels from discussion or from developments and various. And we're already on track this year. One of our most popular programs is our senior exemptions and people with disabilities and veterans program. We go out around the county talking about it. We currently have 14,410 enrolled in that. We average about 25 new applications a year. I was just down in Olympia for a bill signing to enhance that and probably increase eligibility by 50% for helping those seniors and people who've lived in their house. Next slide, please. And this is a little bit of what you need to qualify. Must be 61 years of age or people with disabilities. Other qualifying exemptions that have is you can actually, if you do home improvements and you qualify under our exemption programs, you can defer some of the impact of that when it gets, the assessed value gets added onto your house. We have historic property and farm and machine equipment exemptions. I have technicians and specialists in that, so do not ask me questions on those two. Next slide. Important dates, February 13th, happy Valentine's Day. That's when we mail you your statement. We have a property tax exemption, if anyone wants to know about, coming up at Lakewood City Hall, May 21st. April 30th, of course, is when your first half payment is due. Second half payment is due November 2nd. And June is when we send you out what we've valued the property at. Next slide. That pretty well. There's the legislative. That's the one I was talking about. The concerning people, seniors, and increasing the property tax. So there's the property tax reform that we were able to get this year. Also, we added allowing for nonprofit owned buildings and additional days to host fundraising activities without losing property tax exemption. Next slide. And for nonprofit housing providers, we were able to get some more exemptions there, and assembly halls expand the land there that was sponsored by Pierce County representatives. Next slide. And there's how to contact us. You can get it off the QR code there if that's something that you want. So with that, I will stop. I answer any questions about the department, about this, or if you guys want to ask me about anything in your charter or amendment process. Like I said, I have some that I've given some thought to, but I want to make sure I'm addressing your questions first.
Any questions? Mr. Layton.
Thank you. Commissioner Layton here. Thank you, Assessor Treasurer Campbell. I have a question. I think it's more like because of your title. Like what functions of the county treasurer do you perform since the budget, accounting, and a lot of financial management are done kind of through those folks? So I think that a lot of folks might think you're like a treasurer, right? And you're signing checks for the county and depositing and all that stuff.
Well, ultimately my signature is on a lot of the items. So it is kind of odd that we are combined assessor treasurer, the only one in the state that does that. I have other counties call me up and ask me about doing it in theirs because of the efficiency we have by combining the two. because really a lot of the taking the money in over the front counter, that's more of a treasury function. So I think it's about 45% of my employees in this office here do treasury work. And then there's another 7 in finance that is the treasury manager. And so they handle more the direct distributions out, building the budget. And they do another collection office down there. So they handle a certain portion down there. But we have the bulk here, all those exemptions, many of the open space, some of the classifications, a lot of that really is treasury work. Also, the foreclosure is a treasury function. And so we do the combined. The nice part is being able to talk with people, or people come up and they're like, well, why'd you assess it this way? Rather than saying, well, now you got to go talk to someone else. We just say, well, hold on. I have the assessor that assessed your house sitting right back here. Let me bring them up. And so it gives us a lot better connection on all the way through the process, from when we assess the house to when we collect it to when we disperse it. Good question.
Commissioner Willis?
All right. Commissioner Willis, District 3. Appreciate your time, Mr. Campbell. Very informative. I know there's a lot of fun magic that goes on with the $2 billion there, so it can't be easy to describe where it all goes. I have 2 questions. Is that okay?
So if we could then go to last thing, then we can come back to you.
Perfect. Okay. First one. So in my day job, I like to crunch numbers and give money out when people qualify for that through mortgage or finance. And part of what I do out in my area, District 3 out there, the rural land of Pierce County, we call it. There's a lot of disabled.
Beautiful area out there.
It is. It's very remote and rural. A lot of individuals live out there on property. They have fixed incomes, whether it be disabled veterans or seniors. And obviously with the 3.1% from last year, we're looking at maybe even like 4.8 to 5.5% this year in assessed increased value. So looking at veterans and how they apply for disabled veterans, how they apply for property tax exemptions, we had an individual and it looked very challenging. So I helped kind of walk them through that process. Is there any hopefully relief in that in the future, because they have to be in the house for a certain amount of time and they have to apply, and it's kind of like a tedious process?
Yes, part of the bill that just passed in Olympia clears a lot of that out. It goes to standard deductions rather than the detailed deductions. They're disabled veteran, that right there, that gets them disabled qualified, depending on the amount. There's been other bills that may move the amount based on the amount of disability that didn't get out of Olympia. But the new process coming forward, while it's is going to streamline it. We have a dedicated right now staff of about 6 individuals, technicians that work on those exemptions, and with the 50% increase, we're going to have a busy year. But we are making it easier.
Is that going to take place this year?
It'll go into effect, so people will be eligible as of January 1st of next year. So right now we're still under the guidelines that I posted up here.
Excellent. Thank you.
Yeah.
Commissioner Malinsky?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you, Mr. Campbell, for the presentation that you provided. My heart is for seniors. I've always advocated them for years. One of the biggest things that's out there for them is those who are just 100% Social Security and they own their own home. These taxations, that property tax that does come into play, exceeds their income off this Social Security from there. Is there a program? I know that there's a program where they can ask for tax exemption, but shouldn't there be something in play where, more than just a tax exemption, that those who are just 100% Social Security should not even be considered for that at all, period? I mean, right now, it took me a while to find this elderly person a new home. Because she's on Social Security, we had to leave that home that she had and sell it on a short sale for there. But it's a big concern for me, because no matter how we look at it, the tax really it overtakes the new programs that we always try to implement to help the seniors. And I'm hoping that maybe the assessor might have a program that might be just a little bit stronger than tax exemption.
That'd be more of a policy question. I'm not sure. I mean, I would look into our tax exemption program. Certainly if someone is over 61 and they're solely on Social Security, they would qualify to have their property taxes exempted. And that's as far as our office would look at it. I just got a phone call the other day from someone who said they opened up their tax bill and it was $23,000. Now they live in a very small home in mid part of the county, and I looked it up and they hadn't paid the previous 2 years because they said they didn't receive it or they didn't see the notice. So now they owe 3 years taxes. And I said, well, how much, asked them about their income. She said she makes $10,000 a year and her husband $6,000, and that's their income. And I said, how old are you? And we're in their 80s. They didn't even know about this program. We're going to get them connected with the program. And because once they sign up, part of things, Councilmember Cruver, they get what we call a manifest error. They get 5 years. We go 5 years backwards. And so in their case, not only is this year's going to be taken off, last year's, the year before, the 2 years before that they paid on, they'll get refunded. And so they went from probably sweating very much at their kitchen table about how they're going to be able to stay in this house to now some money coming into their pocket. So we work really hard to help our seniors. And again, the people facing foreclosure, wonderful staff on that. Great question. Thank you.
So we'll go to Rydell Kelly and then back to
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you, Assessor Treasurer Campbell, Commissioner Rydell Kelly, District 4. Obviously, a lot of what we talked about, the questions that have come up so far have been level policy. I'm curious about, and I know you have thoughts you want to share about various charter amendments, but any amendments or charter interests specifically to your office, knowing there's very normal language there, and especially if there's anything kind of on the other side of the work on how assessment is actually done. I know that, I don't think this has been a thing that's been applied to Pierce County historically, but I know that there's historical inequities in how different communities might be assessed at different rates, especially like lower income people are sometimes overassessed or higher income people are sometimes underassessed. I'm wondering if there's anything in the charter that can be done that, provides guidance or support for your office around equity in those types of areas.
Good question. Most of that comes from the state DOR. We actually talk about what you're describing there is called vertical equity. And we actually look at that. Pierce County ranks as one of the better across the state as far as achieving vertical equity. And that is making sure that just one sale in the neighborhood isn't throwing everything out of whack, and really making sure that we're very true with the values to that. I would say because it's really embedded in state law, I wouldn't see a nexus to that in the charter per se. As far as other parts, pretty much so far I haven't seen many amendments. I mean, it's in the charter. We follow the charter, so everything could a little bit, but nothing that I've seen directly impacts our operations.
Commissioner Layton hasn't asked a question yet, so I'll go to him and then.
I've asked
Oh,
a
you
question.
did. So Commissioner Willis.
Commissioner Willis, District 3 again. Mr. Campbell, there's been a lot of discussion in the last couple months to your position that the qualifications, do you feel that the assessor treasurer should have a CPA or an appraisal background to hold your position in the Pierce County Charter?
I don't know that I've seen all that. I've seen a comment on it, and hadn't given that much thought. It's not anything that's required of any other county across the state. We have the 39 counties, 39 assessors, and as far as I know, none of them have a CPA or some of them are assessor treasurers because they came up through, some are not. I have been working on that portion while I've been in to learn it. Not an area that was completely unfamiliar to me before I came in. I also did property management, and so I had extensive experience in property management of a very large community property. So I had the qualifications there beyond just my elected or small business.
Appreciate that. Thank you.
Yep.
Commissioner Fletcher.
Commissioner Fletcher, District 5, thank you. Treasurer Campbell, you mentioned you have 82 on your staff. You mentioned that if there were to be some changes in your department going to cash operations, you would need more staff members. Given that and the numbers you presented with the 30,000 visits, the 36,000 phone calls, 14 million website visits. Do you have any recommendations or just thoughts on how you could make your staff of currently 82 scale up in efficiency without adding additional personnel? In terms of like automated processes, increasing, having a better website with better UX, better back-end design, more automated processes, facilitating phone calls, things like that.
Yes, we work on that all the time. Actually, when I came into the office, we still had 2 fax machines and received faxes. And so we don't have those anymore. So first we got into this century. We're going to work to get us up to a more modern era on a lot of that. We're working on installing a new software program that's going to run most of the operations. When I talk about needing more people, we collected $2 billion last year. 8 million of that was in cash. And so that's in itself a large number, but it's only 0.3% of the total. And so if we went from 0.3% being collected across our counter to 2 billion collected across our counter. But I think what she's saying is she just doesn't want us to go, you don't want us to go to all cash. Encourage cash.
Not
Okay.
eliminated.
Not eliminated. So we work on that though all the time, different efficiencies where we can bring in, we're redoing our exemptions program right now in part because of the projected wave that's coming in. So we have upgraded everyone in the field to iPads with better connectivity, so they're not having to do their photos and go back to a spot and come back. We have a ton of, I could actually go on for about half an hour of the efficiencies just in the last year, and I'm getting the no, so I'm going to stop.
Because I think you have some things you want to share with us as well.
Yes.
Commissioner Strickland.
Hi, Marty. Commissioner Strickland here. I just have a question. I thought it was really commendable that you have done so well with not removing people through that program. Is there a way that do people have access to this program? How can they find the program, I guess, if they need it?
Senior exemptions
Yes.
program, they can go on our website. We have a very good website, pretty easy to navigate. You can come in our front counter, you can give us a call. Any of those, we're happy to help you. Attend one of our things where we're out in the community, really meeting with people. And in those opportunities, we went to one up in Edgewood, and I think we had about 100 people there. So we have a lot of people show up when we go out into the community with those.
All right, Commissioner Layton.
Thank you, Commissioner Layton here. I've heard a lot of conversation about incorporated versus unincorporated. I just want to clarify. I live in incorporated city of Tacoma. Do I pay a county tax?
Yes, you do.
Oh, okay.
7%.
Thank you.
All right, so I believe that's all of our questions. I think you said you had some things you wanted to tell us about.
I did. I mean, I'm willing to opinion on a couple of things. One was the one that I hear coming up a lot. The 48 days, having 50 is really not workable. In 1 year, we had to have a special meeting on Friday, January 3rd to make sure we clocked that year, so that week, so that we would have enough. I was thinking 48, 45 works. I did see one version that had mandatory Zoom meeting into it. While I like that, if we had an emergency, the big earthquake, and communications were down, that shouldn't prevent them from being able to meet to do the business that they'll need to do at that moment. So I would add that in. We talk about 2/3 majority. That has come up a lot, and whether we should have that for tax increases. And I'm kind of with Councilmember Hitchin, where I think it actually works. It's not easy. It doesn't make life easier, but I think it makes it important. I think of all the 2/3 that I've done, and off the top of my head, one was a veto override, and that was a 2/3 vote on August of 2023, which was zoning around homeless services. Public safety tax just was recently passed, as we all know, in March as in a 5-2 vote. And then the affordable housing sales tax. Well, debate on that actually started in the spring of 2022. When we had a Republican majority council, but was adopted in March 2023 by a 5-2 vote. And then mental health sales tax, that actually came before the council in December of 2016. And at that point, the council members voted in favor 4-3, but that failed because it wasn't the majority. came back in December 2020 and passed with a 5-1 on a council while we still had the Republican majority. And so I think when we can really work through these things, they get there when we can see where it's going to go. And sometimes that takes working through it. Now, oddly enough, that one happened to pass on my birthday in December, 1 week earlier. And this is the one thing I would probably maybe change in the charter. If I could, I would. There was an ordinance to dissolve the Tacoma-Pierce County Health Department. And that failed a 3-3 vote on the council. This was a tie vote. Motion failed. I believe that, when we look at 2.20C, where it talks about establishing, abolishing, combining, and divide by ordinance, and quasi-judicial, I think that's where it gets to interlocal agreements that create things like your health department, Pierce Transit, that it should require supermajority to shut that down or to remove it and make it a department of the county. And so I would say that, and if there's an established federated board, that it would take a supermajority vote to extract us out of a federated board like that. I got about 5 more minutes?
You have about 3.
3. Question was asked of me, should the assessor treasurer be appointed? And so I wrote down some thoughts on it, and I spent a lot of time on it, so I'm going to share it. Retaining the elected assessor treasurer is about preserving accountability where it matters most, in taxation. This office determines what people's properties are worth and ensures those taxes are collected and distributed. That is one of the most direct and impactful interactions residents can have with their government. When the authority is elected, there is a clear line of accountability from the taxpayers to the official responsible. If we move this role to an appointed position, that line becomes less visible. Decisions about valuation and tax administration risk being absorbed into a broader administrative structure where responsibility is harder to trace and harder to challenge. An elected assessor treasurer also serves an important institutional counterbalance in a system where a strong executive maintaining independently elected financial officer helps ensure that not a single branch has unchecked influence over both the tax base and the flow of public funds. At its core, this is a question of trust. Property taxes rely on public confidence in fairness, accuracy, and integrity. That confidence is stronger when officials responsible must regularly stand before the voters and answer for their decisions. Retaining this as an elected position affirms the simple principle: when it comes to taxation, accountability should remain directly in the hands of the people. But I think if you want to really, when you're thinking about appointed offices, ask yourself 3 questions. How specialized is the job? Are there lots of people who can step in and do this, or do you have to have a very niche level of experience? How many quality candidates are in the county? Again, are there a lot of people? Are there many that can step in and do it? Or is there only a handful that are qualified, that reach all the qualifications that you would want in it? And then what are the risks of the person in that job? If something goes wrong, how important is that accountability be immediate or delayed? And so those are the questions I would ask when deciding whether or not something should be appointed. And I think that covers most of the ones that I should opinion on at this time. Unless that prompted any additional questions.
So we have probably 1 question, 1 time, or 1 minute. See, none. It looks like you're off the hook.
Oh, me.
Let's see. Okay, Commissioner Fletcher, and then do real fast, Commissioner O'Leary.
Okay, I'll be fast then. Commissioner Fletcher, District 5.
My favorite district. The best district.
So you served in nonpartisan office and partisan office. Does the word nonpartisan or partisan mean anything to you when you're in the office?
Yes, it does. It does filter the way that you look at some of your decisions and who you're going to work with. I've been pretty balanced in my approach and have probably crossed over more than most. Currently nonpartisan, I enjoy that. And thing when we talk about partisan and nonpartisan. It helps voters know where you are, because we all bring our partisanship to the table. I will remind you, this entire group is nonpartisan. I've seen your votes. I'm not sure it feels that way all the time.
Commissioner O'Leary.
This is not as much a question as it is a statement. One thing that wasn't mentioned was your involvement with agricultural lands and taking care of the agricultural community. And I just wanted to say that working with Marty on those issues, you have done a great job in recognizing the importance and the very thin line that agriculture has in this county as far as profitability. So I really appreciate your efforts there.
Thank you.
Wonderful, and that
I
brings-
agree with him.
Well, we'll end on agreement because that's a really good way to go. Thank you so much for your time. Thank you for being here with us. We really appreciate it.
All right, thank you. And again, thank you for all your hard work. It is deeply appreciated.
All right. Well, I think it's really, after talking to this just the right way. The next thing on our agenda is public comment, although historically we've been taking a recess right about now. I'm seeing some nods, so without objection, let's take a 10-minute recess to give folks a minute to use the bathroom, get their water, that sort of thing. So we'll be back at 7:17.
Yes, it's like I was just so believe my voice.
I just haven't had a chance this weekend to take a break, so a little sleep, so I'm